Content creator Jaime Alvarez has released his very own Cardfight Vanguard advice book. After 1 week of reading, I have taken notes. I will be discussing everything I enjoyed and disliked about this book and if it's worth the buy. Now, I want to make it very clear, as this is my first time reviewing a product by another content creator, that this video is not sponsored whatsoever. Everything I'm saying is my own personal thoughts and feelings, and there is no other outputs or ideas affecting my decision today. After buying this book last week, I have had 1 week to read it, and as you can see, I have been taking notes and just writing down my own thoughts and feelings per chapter of each page of the book to figure out on how I feel about it and if any of the advice that's in here is actually applicable to real life card fighting. I do want to discuss the author of this book first, which is Jaime Alvarez, aka Commander Jaime. He is a content creator that has been making Cardfight Vanguard videos for the past 3 years now. He is very well known in the Bushiroad scene as he has commentated events, he is hosting multiple interviews with top players, and he is a MetaFi coach as well. He has gained a huge following over YouTube and other social media platforms, discussing his thoughts and feelings on Vanguards and creating his own blog that shares his personal information on how to get better at Vanguard, discussions with other players, and his thoughts and feelings on how to improve at other decks. He's most well known for creating his deck profiles and A.K.A. and his main clan Aqua Force. With the introduction of the author out of the way, we can now get into the full review of the book and talk about the things that I really enjoyed about it and appreciated from Jaime's aspect, and then the things that I felt like he didn't need in this book at all that took away from everything else that he was talking about. Number 1, sticking to the title of the book. The book is called How to Win Card Fight Tournaments and Break Through Your Mental Barrier, and he really does stick through that throughout the entirety of this book while discussing his 3 different chapters. Now, he does have the book divided by 3 different chapters, which focuses on the first one being the card fighting aspect that talks about your deck building, ratios, clans, nations, things of that nature. The second aspect is the mental barrier aspect. This is where it was really interesting, and the one thing that I came for the book for. He talks about friendship circles, how to connect with other players, practicing and getting the most benefit out of your practice, and really getting past your anxiety. That is an aspect of the book that I do want to come back to later, as I think that whenever we just talk about just getting better at Vanguard, we never discuss the mental aspect of it. And he really does an amazing job at highlighting that in this book, that the card fighting, while it is important, the player aspect and how to perform and think mentally like some of the best players that are content creators on Vanguard on YouTube are applied into this book. And he really does stick to that and does a really good job at doing so. The third part of the book was actually interesting, and it's up to you if you want to take that into it, but the third part of it is basically how to network with players, how to grow your YouTube channel, and how to start a Vanguard YouTube channel, equipment, and things of that nature. I actually thought that was pretty cool that he put that in there, because not only are you getting advice on how to get better at the game, improve your wit, but he also gives you advice on how to become a content creator when you want to do that. Now, the card fighting aspect of the book. So in terms of card fighting, while taking notes, he does an amazing job at breaking everything down. He has broken down deck building. He gave deck building, I believe, 2 to 3 chapters in the book. He gave ratios and actually gave a table of charts discussing the importance of why we play cards at 4 copies, 3 copies, etc., and showcases the percentage levels that you'll see them throughout the game depending on how many copies you play. That was something that I did not know about, so that was a key piece of information I'm actually really grateful for. He also talks about different layers of cards and how they work. And what I mean by that is something that I'll get to my second point, but that's just a quick aspect and overview of his entire part of deck building and card fighting itself. The mental aspect is also super important. He does discuss things such as the nature of friendship circles, and as your goal of a player, if you are somebody who's casual, the importance of maybe playing with people who are expert and casual players like you, so that this way you are getting a full experience of Vanguard, enjoying on all different levels. For veteran players or competitive players, or expert players as you may want to call them, he does discuss how your friendship circle does need to be a little more smaller, and the value of playing with players who are at a higher level of you. And I personally agree with that a lot. That was a personal aspect that I could relate to, because I feel like the only way you grow at anything is if you play against the best of the best, and you're always playing with people who are just better than you at the game, or at least on your level in some way, that are willing to grow with you as much as you want to grow for the game. In terms of card fighting and breaking through the mental barriers, I think that that's the greatest part about this book that he really does stick to, that I enjoyed. The second part of this book that I enjoyed was the depth that he went into. Now, usually when it comes to books and content creators, they don't have the best history. But the thing about Jaime is that he actually has a Vanguard blog, and he has been writing for a while on that blog, so he naturally was able to take his skills from blogging and apply it into this book, and he did a really great job at being in depth on each point that he made. One of my favorite sections of the book is the deck's main goal. Here he talks about winning image, categorizing cards, the value of cards, why you should play them at this ratio to gain the max value, and then understanding how you can look at each card and put it in these categories so you can create the best deck that you possibly can. He goes very in depth on that, and there are actually some key points in here that I personally found very interesting. I'm going to read one of my notes off of this that I actually think is very important to describing how well he does at being in depth to these points. Jaime's categorizing and breakdown of each type of card is amazing. Looking at your own cards in different light to improve your deck building skills is extremely helpful for new to intermediate players. Being able to categorize these cards right away so that the new or intermediate players have something to reference off of is extremely helpful. And even for veteran players such as myself, I was able to gain some value or look at my cards at a different light from a higher level of perspective. Those are just one of the notes that I took about in deck building that I actually thought was very important. And another key aspect of deck building was the fact that every piece of information he applies to goes for all three formats. Now, in this book, he states that he started writing this around July of 2022. So that is the summer of last year, which means that Overdress was still going on. And obviously Premium and V Premium were having their issues, but not the issues we have now today. But he does make reference to every single format in this book: Overdress, V Premium, and Premium, and everything that you see here is going to be viable to you depending on which format you are most likely to play in or the ones that you enjoy the most. To continue my point on being in depth, he also goes very in depth on the mental aspect of this. And this was going to be the most critical part of the book, as being frank, for Vanguard, especially since I've been playing the game for 10 years now, the card fight information that he was applying into the book, 90% of it I already knew. 10% of it I didn't know. I say the percentage of hand ratios, the categorizing of cards, because the way I view my cards is different than the way he views them, but it was nice to see a different perspective. Those were things that I didn't know when it came to deck building, and the view of ratios and how you like to build your deck around resource management. Some ideas I didn't know, so that's like the 10%, but the rest of it was general information. From page 77 and up, he goes very in depth into this. He talks about the metagame and how you need to mentally view the metagame to understand if the deck you want to play for BCS or for regionals is going to be the best for that. He discusses friendship circles, as we've talked about prior in this video, and he's also discussed some personal experiences. A lot of this book is about Jaime's personal experience as a card fighter, and he does reference himself a lot in this book when it comes to giving out information, how he's grown just as a card fighter and as a man, and how he views things when it comes to perspective of completing your goals. Goals is a huge aspect of this book, and that is something that I personally can relate to. So definitely there is a huge relatability aspect to it, and if you are somebody who is trying to grow outside of just Vanguard as a person, there are definitely some key aspects that you, Jaime, and myself will all be able to relate to. I really enjoyed that aspect of this. He also talks about card fighters and their tendencies and things that separates good players and bad players just on site versus, actually talking about them. The relatability aspect is there, the mental aspect is there, and all of that just added an extra layer of feel to the book. The third aspect of the book that I enjoy is the delivery of information. Now, this is more of on the book itself than it is about like the discussing of the card fighting or discussing the mental aspect. It's how he delivers information, how organized he keeps it. In this book, he has different sections on obviously different aspects of card fighting, from the mental to the game itself, and then everything else later on for that. I really do appreciate how organized this book is when it comes to delivering information. He didn't just do like quick summaries or trying to make quick points of that. He actually does take his time in explaining like why it's important to have a winning image. How do you find your deck's winning image? How do you choose the cards that best fit for your winning image? He does a really amazing job at delivering this information and making sure that it's in a way that's understandable for all players on different levels. So whether you're new, intermediate, veteran, expert, whatever you want to call yourself, the way he delivers this information is valuable to every single player on different skill levels. Now, while these were the highs that I had for the book, there were definitely some lows that are still bothering to me after going for a second reread. The first thing that I really didn't like about this book is the fact that it does feel like one big advertisement. This was the biggest pick for me. I feel as though if you're gonna make a book that is going to be about how to win card fight tournaments and, you know, improve your mental health as a player, I really feel like he could have gone more in depth on those points. Even though I stated earlier, I appreciate the summarization of all the points that he made for how to get better at the game, mental aspect, you know, things of that nature, what the book is about. I didn't really care for the fact that, like, maybe every 20 pages and even some actual sections of the book, it does feel like an advertisement. He references WCC, Solemn Vanguard a lot and checking out their videos. He talks about Medify coaching, and obviously that was an entire advertisement for himself because he teaches on Medify, and I just feel like that wasn't really necessary or needed. I mean, because you are a content creator, we're going to look you up just to find the book. If we want to buy it from your website or if we want to buy it from Amazon, we are going to have to look you up anyway, and we will see that Medify label on your channel banner. Personally, for me, I didn't feel like it was necessary. I would have preferred more information on Vanguard itself, and I would have also preferred more information on, you know, growing mentally as a player and other things of that nature. I just feel like the advertisements should have stayed out of the book. You put that in for your blog, not for your book. And that leads into our second point. Going into my second point of thing I didn't preach about this book is the fact that it is honestly one big blog. Jaime's strength is blogs, and I understood that prior to buying this book because I've read one or two blogs of his prior. I knew that when going into this book, I was hoping for a different format. I was hoping that, you know, this is because it's a book. Like, books are not easy to make regardless of if it's books like these or anything of that nature. You need like at least a good little like 6 months to make a book. And I was expecting the information to be a little more in-depth, more organized. And while it was at certain points, some of the other points, it just felt like a blog. Like, you copy and paste it from your blog section, you threw it in there. He has video links in here for like WCC and Solemn Vanguard to reference their videos, which goes back to the first point that I didn't like, is the fact that the book did feel like an advertisement for him and his friends. That was in there, and again, this is just like unnecessary. I didn't feel like, you know, that's something you say for your blog. And I was just hoping that the formatting was different, because I just feel like there were certain things that like he did speak about that I wish he went more into. Like, I really did enjoy his deck building category of the book. I think that if you're trying to make a book about Vanguard and you're including all this information to it, at least your Vanguard aspect of the book, which is what people are actually buying it for, should be like legitimate. Like, that should be super in-depth. I shouldn't feel like I was missing anything, or it shouldn't feel like there were any points you made that I wish I could see more of. Now, the last thing I didn't like about this book, and this could just be a personal nitpick, it didn't deliver on the expectation of what it was talking about. The book, like I said, my first point, not to contradict myself, it does a great job at sticking to its title of discussing Vanguard and the mental aspect of it, but you would think that somebody who talks to some of the best players in the world, hangs out with some of the best players in the world, would have like some insider information that we, the people who are not part of the, you know, high Vanguard inner circle, would have been given to. Maybe it's because I've been playing the game for so long that there isn't too much when it comes to like aspects of this that I can really learn and take away from, but I was expecting just not things to be so general. And while it's a good general, like, because the way he delivers information, I want to stick to my good points earlier, it doesn't feel, there's not really too much like new stuff in here for like us veteran players. And for somebody that's been playing the game for as long as him and has played other card games, I would just think that you would have like more different aspects on situations, or you would be discussing with players about how they view their cards and things of that nature. And I would have liked that. I would have liked it if he had a whole chapter in this book on him talking to like Solemn Vanguard or WCC on their views of cards, how they break down cards and things of that nature, because that would have added different aspects besides Jaime's just into this book. I would have preferred you just give like the personal breakdown that you and Solemn talked about in writing this book, versus me having to go stop reading the book and watch somebody else's video. I didn't like that, but that could just be a personal nitpick with me. Now that I've discussed everything I like and don't like about this book, I will go ahead and give my final thoughts. Commander Jaime does an amazing job at really sticking to the title of his book. I feel like I learned a lot from the mental aspect of the book, and I was able to remind myself of the general aspects of card fighting in this book. For newer and intermediate players, I will say that this is a great read for you. There's a lot of in-depth information, at least at the beginning of the book, that helps you figure out your goals, where you stand as a card fighter, some great deck building information, and some great mental information as well to help you just grow as a person and to help you just grow as a card fighter, not just in the physical sense of the game, but mentally as a player. Now, for my expert or veteran players, I will say that this book is not for you. A lot of the first 70 pages is general Vanguard information that you do eventually learn over time. And if you've been playing the game for over 5 years, just 10 years, or if you played other card games, a lot of that information will seem pretty valueless to you. You might find a couple of bops in there, like I did, about the percentage of hand ratios, the categorization of certain cards, and how to view certain cards in there. Those are 3 personal things that I actually took note of and learned from the book, but most of it you guys won't care for. Those were my final thoughts on the book, guys. Thank you so much for staying tuned throughout the entirety of this video. I sincerely appreciate it. To Commander Jaime, nothing personal. I just have to give my honest review. And speaking of keeping it personal, I've noticed that a lot of you guys aren't subscribed to the channel. Definitely go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well as the notification bell so you guys are always up to date on my newest content coming out. With that being said, I bid you adieu, card fighters. Peace.